Hello, my name is Shailin Dhar. I am the co-founder and CEO of Method Media Intelligence, MMI, and joining us today for the discussion is Emma Ratcliff, Head of Marketing Sourcing for Expedia. Hi, Emma.
Hi, guys.
So today we're going to be talking about the procurement perspective on issues like brand safety and ad verification. And so I wanted to kick off the discussion, Emma, with just asking you, are there any kind of advertising and marketing industry initiatives that you found actually help improve the procurement process?
When it comes to digital advertising, attribution and viewability, I've been on a kind of big journey with the Expedia Group. I've definitely learned more than I've learned in any other sort of company. They do a lot of online digital advertising or digital content. And I suppose my journey has been from playing around with the different tools that are available out there in the market. And some of our brands, bearing in mind we've got about 17 brands, some of our brands are working through media agencies and some of our brands are actually choosing to start going direct. And it's those brands that have probably been going direct more so over the last couple of years that we've done more experiments with on different tools. But pausing on that, I think one of the biggest things that I have realized and we have changed in Expedia Group in procurement is no matter what you're looking at buying in terms of digital tools for advertising and attribution, a lot of the agencies or vendors are saying and are offering up things that may not be achievable. And so subsequently, what we've done in Expedia Group is we've sort of put pause and decided to make sure that everything that we experiment with and try with, we bring in and have a proof of concept. And so that's probably been a real big changer for us, for procurement and for our stakeholders, is every time there is a proof of concept for a set period of time to really test whether or not what an agency or a vendor is saying is actually achievable. And subsequently, we've actually created a short form contract just for those proof of concepts to mean that we can bring people in, trial them out and have fun with everything and see whether it does what it says on the tin before things get embedded way too much. Is
there kind of a standard time period that you found to be the most effective for these proof of concepts?
Yes and no. So normally your stakeholders want to move fast. And so it's like, yep, we'll turn everything on. We'll have this many campaigns running through it. And they'll probably want to do it in as many countries as they can and so on and so forth. And then what you find is you have to pull them back a bit. And it might be due to, your security team saying that there's too much exposure going through for too long a period of time, or you're finding that actually the vendors, the agencies are sort of saying you're asking too much of them through a proof of concept for this period of time. So normally what we're finding is that you have to do maybe one or two key markets, and that you're probably better off doing it. For us, it's over 2 months because we have quite a very changing campaigns over that period of time. But you need to be thinking about what campaigns are flowing through and what the volume of flow is over those campaigns to see if you're getting enough exposure to be able to judge the performance of the tools.
Right. And performance is always a kind of core principle of just measuring the worth of the marketing and advertising initiatives. With Expedia being almost entirely an online transaction business, measuring performance is obviously very key to your strategy. Is there a difference between how you approach, again, from the procurement perspective, how you approach search and kind of performance-based advertising as opposed to display and retargeting advertising?
Massively, yeah. And it can vary by brand as well. So our search and performance completely different, run by different teams versus sort of brand advertising. And we don't really do a lot of retargeting, if I'm being honest. So again, we've kind of been on a journey with different brands, and depending on whether they're through agencies or doing it themselves. A lot of our search and performance is done directly ourselves. However, what you might understand or might not understand is we tend to erode ourselves quite a lot. All of our brands are normally selling a hotel room of some type. So hotels, cars, flights, rentals. So we have to be careful of how we look, whether it's a search or program, that we're not eroding each other within our own brands. And that's something that a lot more work probably needs to be done on, and we need to improve on. With retargeting is probably one of the areas where we've, over the last 2 years, best moved on. We've realised that actually chasing some of our customers around the internet is actually proving negative rather than positive. So that's why we've probably pulled out of that quite a bit. And then on digital advertising, we're experimenting with the content. There's a lot of, does the content inspire? We don't just want, our brands popping up in front of customers and that's it. We want something a little bit more memorable, whether it's humor or whether it's factual or whether it just hits your heartstrings if you're a foodie or an animal lover or something along those lines. So we've been experimenting a lot more with that, which is where, ROAS and whatever comes into play to work out what's going on.
And with your team, do you manage all of that performance measurement and attribution all in-house as well?
Some of it, yes, some of it, no. Okay. So again, some of our brands are using agencies to do this, but the bigger brands are doing it themselves. And we have had many different tools with regards to, I can see you smiling, you know what I'm going to say, with regards to attribution. And I think that's probably the golden chalice, isn't it, of everyone within marketing. What are you getting back for the money you're spending? And is that the perfect place to place your ads or place your spend or whatever? And I'm going to be honest and say we've tried a lot of tools, and not one tool stands out to achieve that goal. And I think if anyone thinks there is, there isn't. It's still the golden chalice that everyone's driving for and trying to achieve. But it's certainly fun learning on the journey of where you can get and what that means for you and for your brands and for your company.
Yeah, I think, attribution is something, the capabilities around attribution are probably the most often exaggerated across this marketplace. So we've always found, and I'm sure your team has experienced this too, that the kind of first step is just having full receipts and clarity on where the money went in the first place. Because just relying on a magic attribution compass with no clarity on where the money went to begin with, just kind of, it's layers of magic on top of each other and doesn't really give us direction to go in.
Yeah, and I completely agree. From a procurement point of view, it's always something that we've wanted to achieve is, when we buy media, whether it's traditional, we've always known that there's been layers in which we just don't understand some of the spend and where it's gone. And what I'm seeing now is that's just being replicated in grey areas across the digital world. And, from a procurement perspective, it's trying to get in there and shine that torch with your stakeholders or with your agencies and make sure that whatever tools you're doing, you really understand how much you can understand about it and try to work on those areas that aren't being opened up and aren't being explained to you and aren't helping you get that true visibility that honestly you would like. And if you keep pushing at it, you will find areas where you will break through, you'll get more understanding than others. And some tools, some vendors, some agencies are a lot more open than some others.
Sounds like a lot of the job is centered around being persistent.
Yes, persistency is definitely something you need in this area.
Yeah. One of the other topics I wanted to touch on and get your perspective on was, with digital advertising specifically, more and more of what both agencies and advertisers directly actually buy is technology that enables access to media rather than actually directly buying the media. I know that in your organization there's a lot of direct buying for your big brands, but as procurement is moving more and more just across the industry to procuring technology, do you see a need going forward to just have more technologists involved with the procurement process?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. I had the advantage of buying IT and software prior to marketing procurement. So it didn't faze me quite so much, that grey area, but that grey area has massively grown. And the tools that are out there now are probably astounding. And I will admit that, I struggle to keep up with it I want to say on a daily basis. It's not daily, but they change and there's always something new popping up so regularly. And my teams are like, what about this? And what about that? And so on and so forth. You'd be crazy not to welcome in somebody who knows. And I suppose the question is, when you talk about technologists, who do you see that as? And when you say that, I'm instantly thinking my privacy team, my security team. There aren't IT people per se, but it's about the connectivity in through. So, I'm looking at my security team and wondering what information am I connecting where to help with the attribution and to help with the targeting and so on and so forth. And what's the data flow going through and what does that look like? And then on my privacy team side, the tags that are being attached, what data are they collecting? Do they need to collect that data? Are they collecting data to improve themselves or to improve us? I know I shouldn't say that, but it always.
I think that's part of the question that always comes up is how many of these data points are necessary for the utility of that product versus improving that product for that company's other customers.
Yeah. And then how many times do we put in place maybe a multi-year agreement and those tags change and you're not aware those tags have changed and that comes into play with other things. So yeah, I think as a procurement person, I need those people around me to help me understand those data flows and what I should be looking out for. And I need my stakeholders to be a step ahead of me as well. I can't be a step ahead of them. It's too wide a arena now for any one procurement person to say, I'm the expert in all of this. I wouldn't dare deem to say that I would be. It's too big an area.
Right. No, I completely understand. We're, our team is supposed to be specialists in robotic online traffic, and we have monthly and actually weekly catch-ups on developments in that space. So there's just no way to ever get complacent. But from your perspective, when your team maybe is talking to or considering 10 different technologies, how many of those 10 end up filtering down to your desk? Or is that not a fair question?
I was going to say, it depends who's driving it. We have at Expedia Group now, they're realizing our different brands were playing around with so many different technologies that actually they started realizing if they talked with each other they would have a better portfolio of knowledge, and you wouldn't have to play around with the tools a lot as much as they had historically been doing. So we're finding that there's a bit more uniformity across the brands in the group, which is great. It doesn't mean to say, though, that as a group they're not wanting to find the latest thing and see whether it really does do what it says on the tin. So it's hard to say that out of 10 things that I can actually stop and press pause on any of those. And that's why we brought in the proof of concept. So I can let them have a run and a play around with something to a certain extent. And you'll normally find that very quickly my stakeholders will start discounting something and be going, no. Even before sometimes we've got into the proof of concept, where I'm making them stop and think about what is it we want, what is it we need them to do, have we asked these questions, have we explored these areas, because they get enthusiastic and they're like, they say they can do this, and you have to just sort of remind them, yeah, but can they? How can we prove they can? What can you do in the space of 1 month that proves they can? And then that's when you start seeing them pull up these threads, and these threads just, reveal the truths a lot more.
So we have a few minutes left, but I actually wanted to dig in that a little bit. We can take brand safety and ad verification as an example. For your proof of concepts, to kind of limit exposure out of these tests, would you say that you're kind of trying to find the least disruptive implementation of a new technology? So, in ad verification of brand safety, you would never implement a blocking solution during that testing period. You would just kind of do the data collection and see how a company is measuring, X versus Y versus Z.
I think on that one, we work in different ways, but where we're buying direct, we've been focusing more on the whitelist than worrying about blocking. We used to have those tools and work with those tools, but what we were finding was that actually the cost of those tools themselves, if you didn't control the pricing structure, got inappropriately more expensive compared to what they were actually protecting you from. But don't get me wrong, certain brands deem that protection, is well worth that cost, and rightly so for those. But we found that actually if we challenged ourselves and focused more on the whitelist, and the positive and buying directly from publications and so on and so forth on our whitelist, and challenging what could go wrong with those, meant that we didn't need so many brand safety tools. So we tend to find that when we're doing proof of concepts, we are sticking to an environment we feel pretty safe in, and rightly or wrongly, you could argue whether that allows us to fully understand the capabilities of the tool, but that's sort of just the way that we tend to work.
That makes perfect sense. I think we're out of time for this session, but we're going to be available for the 20 minutes in the live Q&A that follows this. Emma, thank you for joining this session. It was enlightening for me, and I hope it was enlightening for the audience. Thank you to everybody that tuned in, and we will see you in the Q&A session in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.